In this English 2010 video, we want to discuss the importance of introductions and conclusions in your academic writing. Let me tell a short story. When I had first finished my graduate school study, I wanted to publish part of my thesis or dissertation, which was my final big research project in graduate school. And I had found a writer who was creating a book that was similar to the topic that I was writing, and she was looking for a variety of different writers to contribute to her edited book. And we each had written a chapter that related to her overall topic. And so I edited my dissertation to be a book chapter. I submitted it to this editor, and I received her feedback. And in general, she was very happy with the chapter. It was on the topic that her book was about, and it provided a perspective that none of the other authors were writing about. However, she gave me feedback, and she said that my conclusion fell flat, that she really liked the chapter, but the conclusion was lacking. That expression, to fall flat, means that it's not successful. And so she felt like my conclusion needed to be revised. And really what had happened is it was so much work getting this chapter revised while I'm busy with my job and busy with my family that I just very quickly wrote something and I didn't think much about it. I just wanted to get it done. And that experience was a good reminder to me that we have to be thoughtful about how we write, and that if we rush ourselves, we won't have as high quality as we need and as our readers would expect. And so this editor invited me to revise my conclusion and then resubmit. And I did that. But that's always been a good experience for me to remember the importance to give myself time to not only write a great paper, but to write a great conclusion as well. So let's talk a little bit about how academic readers read. When they come across an article, what they generally do is they'll read the introduction to that article, and if the topic and the focus is of interest to them, then generally what they do is they'll very quickly skim the body or the middle part of the paper. They might read headings, they might look at diagrams or pictures if there's any included, but they won't read those body paragraphs in much detail. Then they'll go to the conclusion and they'll carefully read the conclusion. And to make sure that the conclusion has ideas that interest them, that the information is something that they want to read more carefully. If they like both the introduction and the conclusion, then the reader might go back to the middle, the body section, and read it more carefully to learn the details. So that's one reason why the introduction and the conclusion need to be really good, is because if they're not good, the reader's not going to bother to read the middle part. We often think of readers starting at the beginning and going all the way through to the end, but that's not how many academic readers read. They choose their time wisely and they decide, am I going to spend a lot of time on this? First, I need to preview it and make sure that it's worth my effort. And if that introduction and conclusion are good, then they'll go back and they'll read the middle part. So this puts a lot of responsibility on writers to write good introductions and conclusions so that our readers will want to read the whole paper or the whole chapter or the whole book. So let's talk about introductions. What kinds of things do we find in an introduction? Well, generally, an introduction is going to introduce our topic, and it's going to go from a general topic that maybe the audience already knows about and understands to something more specific, which is the topic of our paper. And so to do that, we're going to have to give some background information. We're going to have to help the readers connect what they already know to our more specific topic, which may be new information that they're not as familiar with. Now, of course, at the end of the introduction, especially in academic writing, we expect to see a purpose statement, or sometimes we call it a thesis statement. This lets the reader know what the purpose of the paper is, and that everything that they read after is going to be connected to that purpose. If we don't have a clear thesis statement, it can leave the reader feeling confused as to what they're supposed to learn from the paper. Many academic writing introductions will also have something that we can call a roadmap. A roadmap gives the readers an indication of what subtopics will be discussed in the body of the paper, and often the order that those things will be discussed in. So this way the reader's a little bit prepared. We're preparing their mind to know that they're going to learn about these different topics in the paper. That way they're more prepared for it. They understand it better when they come across it because they already have a mental image or an outline in their brain that helps them understand and organize the information that the writer presents. The other thing that an introduction can have is something we call a hook. And we usually put the hook at the beginning of the introduction. So the hook is at the beginning of the introduction, and often the thesis statement and roadmap are near the end of the introduction. Let's talk about what a hook is. Okay, so now a hook in everyday English is something we often use for fishing, right? A fishing hook catches the fish and makes the fish hold on so that then the fisher can take the fish out of the water. Well, similar way that a hook works in writing. The writer creates a hook at the beginning of the paper or the article that will catch the reader's interest and keep the reader focused on reading that paper until they finish it. And so you have to start your paper with something interesting that makes the reader feel like, yeah, I want to know more about this topic. So here are some examples of hooks that we might use. One of them is an anecdote. An anecdote just means a short story. So it should be a short story as in maybe just a few sentences even possibly, where you share something. It could be funny, it could be shocking, it could be sad, but some kind of story to get the reader interested in the topic. Stories are very good at catching people's interest and making people care about a topic. So that's one possibility. You could start with a short story. You could start with a quotation. Maybe there's a really interesting quotation that you feel like introduces your topic or raises a concern about the topic that will get people interested. You could start with a question. We often call this a rhetorical question. A rhetorical question is a question that we don't expect the listener or the reader to answer, but we ask the question to get them thinking about the topic, and that prepares them for the topic that we will present. You could also share maybe a shocking or unusual statistic. Maybe in your research, you found some information about the source that is quite surprising, and that you think that if you present it at the beginning, it will make learner or readers want to learn more about your topic because they want to understand how this statistic could be true or real. So we talked a lot about all the things that an introduction can do. Let's now talk about some of the things that a conclusion can do. So first, a conclusion should include a paraphrase of the thesis statement. By the time you get to the end of that paper, you want to have a clear summary and a reminder of what the paper is really about, what its purpose was. And you can summarize the main points if you like as well, but really restate or paraphrase your thesis statement. If you introduced any problems or complications during your paper, you want to resolve those. You want the reader to feel like there's a summary or a conclusion to the problem, and that you have provided some understanding in how to resolve that problem. You could make predictions about the future. What will happen if people follow your advice? Or what will happen if people do not follow the advice that you are giving? That can help people understand how your topic connects to the world outside your topic, why it matters. This is where you could also do the opposite. In the introduction, we said go from general to specific. Well, then you can do the opposite in your conclusion. You can go from your specific topic and make it general again. Why does this matter to the rest of the population? Why should people care about your thesis statement? And you can also encourage your readers to take action. What should they do with this information? Should they live differently? Should they learn more about a topic? Should they act differently in their lives? Should they pressure their government to make some changes? Try to help them understand why this information matters and what they can do with this information. So we talked about the purposes of introductions and conclusions. Let's talk about how you might write them. We've talked a lot about writing processes, and you need to find a writing process that works for you. But here's a suggested process that could help you be more effective at writing good introductions and conclusions. First, as we've talked about, go ahead and draft the whole paper. When you've done your research, you've learned about your topic, you know what sources you want, then plan your outline with your introduction, body, and conclusion. But when you get ready to start drafting or writing, you don't have to start with the introduction. You can start with the body paragraphs, Write about those, make those strong and good, make sure they connect to your thesis statement, but you can write your body first. Then once you've written your body and you have a clear idea of what your paper really was about and what your conclusion is, then it's a good idea to write the conclusion. And then at the end of writing the conclusion, you could go back and write your introduction. One reason why we might write the introduction at the end is because now we have a clearer sense of what our paper is. As you write your paper, you're still learning about your paper. You're still understanding the concepts and the ideas. And so if you wrote your introduction first, it's possible that your focus and your paper could change some as you write because you're still thinking as you draft. But if you wait and write it at the end, then your introduction will match everything that you've written in your body and your conclusion, and you're in a better position to explain your topic to your readers. So as you work on revising your papers this week, I encourage you to think about having a strong introduction and a strong conclusion. Don't wait and write those introductions and conclusions when you're tired. Give yourself some time. If you've written the body, instead of just quickly writing a poor introduction and conclusion, you can wait, and then you can go back to your paper and write a stronger conclusion and introduction that better fit the quality of the writing that you've done in the rest of your paper. Good luck with your revision process.